Hi friends, my name is Kat and welcome to my channel. We do lots of books, beauty, and lifestyle stuff here. And today we're kind of starting in the, I guess we could say, year-end content. And we're gonna do a series of videos over the next month, kind of going over a few of my favorites in different genres. So today is going to be my favorite romances that I read. And these are all gonna be really like, I guess, contemporary romances. I am gonna separate like my favorite fantasy or fantasy romances. I'm gonna add that into my same video that I'm doing fantasy books, because I feel like, I don't know, in my mind, the way that I'm organizing it, that makes a lot more sense. So today is just contemporary romances, which also means that we're not going to have as many to talk about, because when I think about like my favorite like romance things, I guess fantasy romance is definitely popping to the forefront of my brain, because fantasy romance tends to be one of the things that I read more. And I did read a good amount of romance this year, but if we're being very honest, not a lot of it stuck out to me. A lot of it just kind of like faded into the background, what I guess we could say like just kind of all blended together. And there seemed to be a lot of like very unmemorable stuff, unfortunately, but we did have a few standouts, and those are what we're going to talk about today. So today's video is going to be very quick. To be honest, I don't want to sit here forever. I don't have a lot of time today, so we're just going to quickly run through what romances I read and love, and would also recommend that potentially you check out. So I'll start out with my actual like #1 favorite romance. This hands down is the best, and that was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This I thought was one of the like sweetest romances I've seen in a bit. So much of characters like really working through their trauma together, and like the male main love interest was like that ultimate like if he wanted to he would type of character. So we are following two people. They both kind of think that they have this reputation of whoever they date after the relationship ends, that person goes on to find their forever person. And after hearing about each other through Reddit, they decide to spend a summer dating with the intent that after they break up they will go on to their next people, and of course they end up falling in love. And I just thought beautiful book of exploration of like a lot of the trauma that both of them are going through, that they've dealt with their entire lives, working through it, and just like some of the sweetest love interactions, like just somebody who, like especially our male main character, who's willing to go over and above with everything, and really enjoyed this one. Also, I'll just say a lot of these, there's some 4 stars and 5 stars. I try not to only limit it to 5 stars, because then we'd have a very short video today. Next up, Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. This is book 3 in her Love Light Farm series, which I love. I just love in general. It is a small town romance, and not even just that, it takes place on a Christmas tree farm too. So you know that it is like the ultimate best thing ever. But this is a fake dating book. We have the baker at the farm and local former sheriff who decide, like after realizing both of them have terrible luck in relationships, they decide to kind of like just test out dating each other to give each other critique on what they're doing right or wrong. Loved it. I thought it was super cute. My Darling Bride by Isla Madden Mills was a very surprise hit for me. It was a 5 stars, and I really wasn't expecting it, because first off, like author I've never heard of this book, and also it was a bit of a sports romance which the male main character is a football player, and he wants to access this inheritance that he has, but part of the regulations is that he has to be married by a certain age. The main reason he does this, he has money, but his younger brother is gay, and because of this he has been cut out of the inheritance, and he refuses to take his brother's like football money. So but he does agree that he will take the inheritance. So our male main character decides to get married so that he can access this money and give it to his brother. And our female main character is basically like a struggling businesswoman. She owns a bookstore that is kind of like, or I don't know if she only owns it or works at it, but it's not doing the best, and she's really trying to keep things afloat, and agrees to marry him. In like exchange, he will give her money. And I loved this. So I love like this fake dating, arranged marriage, like Marriage or Convenience. I love all of those things so much, and I think that this one just did it beautifully. Like this was a book that had a wonderful cast of supporting characters, and just had such a full like vibrant community, and the characters had such vibrant lives that like I couldn't help but get addicted to their story and just love being with them every step of the way. And yeah, the romance was really cute too. Anastasia by Sophie Lark. This is the first book that I've ever read from her, and I think maybe to my detriment, because everything else has not stood up the same way. And also it's the only fantasy romance I think that she has out. So this one's technically fantasy romance, but I'm going to consider it in this one because it's more of like a historical romance with a fantastical element, but I'm going to include it in this video anyways. So we are following the story of the Romanovs and Anastasia in particular, but it's the same story of the Russian monarchy and their downfall, except in this world, some people have magic. And in particular, the Romanovs, they have this magic that goes throughout their generations that they're able to stop time. And this has been the thing that has kind of kept them in power, because they have like, this is such an insanely powerful power that it's like completely been able to change the course of like every war they fought in. And we're following as Anastasia grows up and Rasputin comes in and he starts kind of controlling her family, making like all of the same things that happen typically in the actual story, but with a fantastical element. And we're also very much following the love story of Anastasia and this boy Dmitri. He was the son of an enemy of the Russians, and when he was a young boy, he decided to try and kill Anastasia's father. He was the king. I did forget what the exact word is. The Tsar. He was the Tsar. And Anastasia stops him with her time freezing powers. And because of this, they don't kill him, but instead they take him in, like he's taken in by her uncle as a ward and forced to kind of like be raised as the ultimate Russian soldier. And it's very much a love story between the two of them as well, because they are not allowed to be together because obviously it's an enemy and a princess, but they very much are constantly around each other and slowly fall in love. I thought this story is beautiful. I will say the last little bit, there was a wild change that kind of ruined a bit of the vibe for me, but really enjoyed this one. By a Thread by Lucy Score, I think is one of the only boss employee romances that has ever worked for me. I'm somebody who very much has an issue when there's a power dynamic in a book. Like if there's a very intense dynamic that like really changes the course of a relationship or really just creates a weird vibe in a relationship, like I cannot get on board with it. I don't want there to be a power imbalance at all. But this is one of the only ones that worked for me, I think, because both of our characters were older, so they were both very mature. They both were very much comfortable in their own skins, and basically as soon as a relationship started, they went to HR and they did what they had to do to kind of make it like work on board. So the premise of this one, they are working at this like high-end fashion magazine. Our female main character, she was a waitress who happened to be serving the male main character and his mother, and he was a prick to her. He was an absolute asshole. So at this pizza restaurant that she was working at, she was not afraid to let him know that he was being a terrible customer and insanely rude. So when she brought out the pizza that he had ordered, she wrote like, I think something like asshole across it with pepperoni, and she gets fired because of this, of course. But our main character's mother, who is the owner of this fashion magazine, really was impressed with her spirit and felt bad that she got fired, so she gave her a job within the company. That's really the essence of the story, is she's working at this company, really finding herself, finding a new career, and the son had recently come back into the company. So I guess he'd worked somewhere else for a long time and then came back in to work as, I think, like one of the creative leads, and he is trying to figure out his role within the company. And also the two of them, they can't help but keep coming into contact and like cannot seem to stay away from each other. So one of the few that I really enjoyed, I think it was very much like, the only reason this one worked for me is because it was older characters who were within the same age range. It wasn't like a very young intern and a boss, and also they like very much acknowledged the fact that there was this power imbalance and went to HR to solve it. And I think that is what I need in any like workplace romances. Pucking Wild by Emily Rath. This is another sports romance, which again like kind of throws me that I enjoyed this one. And I think like I felt very good about this one because the first book in this series, I think it was called Pucking Around. It was a polyamorous relationship and it involved multiple players of a hockey team and their team doctor, and I loved it. So this one unfortunately was a little bit of a letdown compared to that, which I think it's just no matter what dynamic I'm following after that, I'm not going to be as invested, just because that was one of the first times I've really read a book that did polyamory in such a great way. And this one, so it did have an age gap, which I'm not always against an age gap romance. I do find that sometimes they can work for me. It just very much has to be like, I can't feel like one of the characters is parenting the other one or like controlling the other one. That's when it doesn't work. But in this one, we have an older female character and a younger male character, which I think just having that reversal compared to what is typical in romance books, I think that alone honestly made the biggest difference ever for me, because I was able to get so much more on board with it and didn't feel as weirded out. But we're following a young, like the hockey star. He's very young, very new to the hockey scene, and very like, he gives like the golden retriever, very like puppy energy. He was very sweet. And we have an older female main character. By older, I mean like mid-30s, really not old at all, but older in comparison to the young guy. And she is the best friend of the team doctor in the last, but she has recently gotten out of a marriage and lost her job because of it, because she worked at his family firm. And that marriage was very like, I don't know if I want to say abusive, but it was like, I can't remember exactly if it was abusive, but it was not a healthy relationship and she was very unhappy in it. So she left this relationship, moved across the country, and is now restarting her life. And they get together and she introduces him basically to the world of kink, and basically everything, teaches him a lot about sex. And I think that that actually really worked for me. Seeing it, especially, like, it wasn't a weird older man dynamic. I think that I really need, because if it was an older man teaching a young girl about sex and all of these different things, I don't think I can get on board with that. But really like this one the way it was. I felt like the dynamic was fantastic, and just seeing again these two characters grow and really come into themselves, really accept things about themselves and realize like what they want in life. Fantastic. Caught Up by Liz Tomford. I absolutely love this one, and honestly no shock because it was a single dad romance, which is another one of my favorite tropes. We're following Kai, again sports romance also, but maybe I like sports romances a lot more than I thought. Kai is a single father. He has a young son who basically the mother came in, dropped off the son, and after like a one-night stand and was like, well, I don't want him anymore, he's your responsibility. And ever since then, Kai has been like a very overprotective father. His son's 1 year old at this point, and he's like run off basically every nanny, every babysitter they've ever had. He is also a star baseball player, and basically after his last nanny is fired, the timing kind of works out well that his coach's daughter is in town. She is between jobs because she happens to be a very elite baker, and she needs to take a step away to kind of like let herself think and be re-inspired creatively. And her father, who's the coach, kind of suggests that she works as the nanny to this young boy for the summer, just kind of get them through the baseball season, and hopefully like hoping that it will reinvigorate her love of baking. She'll be re-inspired, anything. And then it becomes a romance between Kai and Miller, the nanny. Like, I love a single dad romance, and I think it's primarily just because I like to see not only the love between the two adults, but I love to see that slow acceptance of the child, of this new person in their life. And you can also see, I find in these type of romances too, that there is very much this like family aspect growing together. Like, they're not just a couple, but they are starting to become a family together, and I love it. I eat it up like every single time, and this was no exception. Love this one. Love this series overall as well. This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. Something about her books this year have just like really done it for me. So in this one we have a woman who's in an unhappy relationship. She's married with 3 kids, and at this point, even though she's unhappy, her life has been going on for so long like this, and has 3 daughters support. She does not work. Her husband is the sole breadwinner. So even though she's unhappy, she's just kind of going along with it. But her husband gets caught stealing from the company he works from, and like a very significant amount of money, and also gets caught in all of these lies, and he ends up going to jail. And she, after realizing how much he's lied to her, decides to team up with the financial accountant, or forensic accountant, I think that's what it might be, who basically has gone all through these books and realized that money was being stolen. And they end up teaming up together to kind of bring down her husband, because she learns the truth of how much he's been lying to her. And then slowly through the course of the investigation, she ends up falling for this accountant as well. And I thought this book was really beautiful because it did show this like letting go of a life that you thought you were going to have forever, and rebuilding yourself from basically nothing into what will be like your true happiness, and realizing that, you know, what you thought was making you happy is not necessarily like the thing that will lead to like your ultimate happiness. I think I didn't really make much sense there, but it was just really our main character, discovering her happiness and realizing that the life she had before wasn't actually fulfilling. I also thought that this book, it had truly like fantastic parents in it. Both of our main characters were single parents. The main character had autistic children, and he was truly like the best dad in the world. Like, you cannot find like a better example of fantastic dad in literature. Like, he and his ex-wife as well had the best co-parenting relationship, and literally he is one of those people who anything to make sure his sons are happy he would do, and like at the drop of a hat. So I absolutely loved both the characters. Thought it was just a beautifully written. The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I really happened to like her sports romances and nothing else. Also, again, like, how many sports romances have I loved this year? Okay, so we have 2 people they used to date. It's been a long time. One of them is now a sports agent. The other is a very famous NFL star. So he signs to her agency and ends up getting assigned to her. And basically things kind of start as he decides to make her life hell, to kind of like make her pay for all the years that she didn't talk to him. And also because she broke his heart. So he kind of wants to get a little bit of revenge for that. And a wild night in Vegas leads to them kind of like making a spontaneous decision to get married, of course. And then they decide to kind of stick it out just for both their reputations and of course end up falling in love. I love a good like drunken Vegas marriage book, and this one was fantastic for me as well. I did give this 5 stars. Okay, we're almost done, thankfully. Funny Story by Emily Henry. I thought that this was really, really fun. I do have a physical copy, it's just with my friend. But again, Emily Henry never misses for me. This one was great because it really like, I don't know, like every one of her books just hits me at a different time in a different way. But I thought that this was fantastic about seeing like sometimes you give too much of yourself into a relationship, and when you come out of it, you don't really realize like how to find your footing, and you don't really realize who you are apart from this person. And this is what the primary part of this book was about. Is our main character, she gets broken up with and really does not know who she is outside of this relationship because her ex kind of just she just kind of went along with everything that he wanted and really didn't have anything for herself. And yeah, we're really just following her. She's trying to put the pieces of her life back together and move on and also realize what she actually wants. And I loved it. And the last book I'm going to talk about very, very quickly as well is Dungeons and Drama, which this is the only YA one in here. It's one of the only like YA contemporary books that I read this year. But I do have to say, I think this was adorable. And while the romance, you know, it's not really anything too much to write home about, I just loved the premise of this book. We are following a teenage girl. She gets grounded, and part of her punishment is that she has to work in her dad's game shop for the summer or for a few months. And while there, she kind of gets involved with this Dungeons and Dragons group and eventually starts a like fake relationship with one of the members because he has a crush on this other girl and she wants to help him make her jealous. But also she has an ex-boyfriend and she kind of wants to prove to him that she's moved on. And then of course they get together, like, and realize they have feelings for each other and get together. I think this was super cute. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd, so of course this is something that I would enjoy. But I just really, really enjoy seeing books of like people kind of finding their communities and finding like new things to get them excited about. And the premise of this was just really cute, and I love kind of seeing like the little nerds just having a great time. So yeah, these are my top romance books of the year. We will have a few more videos soon. We'll have the best fantasy and fantasy romance in one, and best sci-fi. I might also in the sci-fi kind of talk about like the sci-fi and everything else in one, because I don't think I'm going to do a top 10 video. I haven't really decided yet. We might just kind of keep these videos as my wrap up for the year. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, would love if you subscribe and take a look at any of my other videos to see if there's something you might be interested in. So I hope you have a great day, and hopefully I will see you in a video soon. Bye.